Hit it, Doc. We are live. I repeat, we are live, theoretically. Excellent connection. Now that's absolutely fantastic. I'll just, give me a hot second. I will open the video, or rather the stream, on my phone and check if the audio is working. For a lack of anybody tell me if that's good or not. Let's see. Live. Oh, I'm not legally allowed to actually see my own stream on my page. Sorry, guys. Well, what now? Do I have to restart the app? No. Alright. Let me. I am audible. This is awesome. And we're gonna switch to all messages, which is still called all messages instead of live chat, because the entire widget is called live chat. Hello. Hello. Welcome to my rambling session, which, as I am reliably informed by the youngsters today, is called a yapping session. I think that's the official terminology, which I'm not going to be using, because it sounds stupid. Although these days I don't think you can tell anymore which terms are ironic and which ones are. Oh yeah, I have to say which ones are ironic and which are used in earnest. So we should probably stop using words and just rely on non-verbal communication. I've heard non-verbal communication is like 70% of all communication, so therefore definitely we should be, you know, perfectly fine to ditch the tiny like 30% of the verbal one and just rely on the 70%. You know? I think that's viable. And think about just how much we could save, how much time and effort we could save if instead of speaking we just, I don't know, made like angry and or happy noises, right? That is an interesting statistic in terms of like, oh, because you know that's something you hear, and then I'm not entirely convinced about how real and accurate that is. Like, you hear that, I agree, sure, a lot of the message is in the cues and how people say something, but ultimately, how is it 70% even measured? Is it like, did they somehow compute the number of bits being conveyed through they count the number of bits being conveyed through verbal versus non-verbal, and they've determined there's 3 times as many bits of information. Because if you didn't know, a bit is a unit of a unit of information. 1 bit is either true or false, the smallest amount of information you can have. If you need at least 2 states for it to be information, because otherwise, if there's just 1, it's not. It doesn't actually tell you anything. So I do wonder how they have arrived at the 70%. What if it's just like a myth that people have been perpetuating because it just kind of sounds right and everybody knows it, and so then it gets like, you know, continued, and there's actually no source for it, no reason. Or like the computation is just like a figure of speech somebody used to say to like emphasize that non-verbal communication is important, and now we have this like 70% figure in our heads for no reason. It's not actually real. I studied psychology? No. I clearly haven't. I assume if I have studied psychology, you know, I would know the answer. I'd know exactly the guy that is responsible for this absolute travesty. Mad at the 70%, that's what I am, you know. Somebody had a number and I haven't been given the source, and I can't be asked to actually look for the source myself. And so instead of that, I will get mad at the guy that I'm not even the guy. I'll get mad at the consensus in society that that's a thing, and it shouldn't be. Anyways, it's a very, very productive tangent, I think. Now, is it a tangent though, if that's literally all I've been talking about? I think the jury is still out on this one. We will not know. Where did I get that number? That's something I've heard like IRL from people. But now you're making me wonder. I'm going to take a look at how much of communication is non-verbal. We are doing it live. How much of communication is non-verbal? Okay, let's see. This is the University of Texas Permian Basin. We've all heard that 90% of communication is non-verbal. Hello? Apparently I was undercutting it. Apparently it's 90%. A 90% figure wasn't plucked out of thin air. It was Albert Mehrabian, a researcher of body language who first broke down the components of a face-to-face conversation. He found that communication is 55% non-verbal, 38% vocal, and 7% words only. This is where the idea that the vast majority of communication is non-verbal originated. Huh? Okay, it turns out that the above formula was developed with a specific purpose in mind, comparing facial and vocal components to decipher a person's attitude. When there are inconsistencies between attitudes, the postural component should dominate. Okay. So it's not about so the guy, from what I'm reading on this page here, is the guy's not actually saying that 90% of information being conveyed is non-verbal, but that the impression you get, or rather like how the person comes through to you, is mostly non-verbal. That's what he's talking about. So what he means is is not just because the information is conveyed primarily through words, and that makes sense. But then you have a whole plethora of information that is kind of meta. So it's not directly what the conversation is about, not about the topic, but rather about the person that is delivering the message. And I don't really see in this article where how he actually calculated the 90%. Actually, I'm gonna alt tab again and look. Is there like a reason? Is there a link? The 55, 38, 7 formula. Like what? Psychology Today looks at non-verbal communication. Now that's a rabbit hole. Okay, let's see. Where did you get the figure from? How did this happen? Why is there no link for this? How is this it's just accepted? It's like, yeah, we just, everybody knows that's obvious. No, that's a double cookie banner, screw you, I'm not looking at your website. Please perish from material reality, thank you. There's magic in your smile, that's wonderful. Can I... where did this myth come from? There you go, that's... A myth persists. There's 3 articles that perpetuate the claim. It's been persistent. It's a common thing people say. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. However, is there any source for like where this myth came from? I'm reading from David R. Novak. The history of this insidious little nugget stems back to 1967. Albert Mehrabian, that's the same guy, a famous psychologist, published 2 studies about message incongruence. Message incongruence was a situation where speakers' verbal and non-verbal behavior did not match. And he observed that people frequently make decisions when a speaker's word people, how frequently people make decisions. Huh? Okay, so he's like investigating when like it differs between people. People differ between what they actually say with words and how they convey it saying something else, I guess. Mehrabian ran 2 experiments with 137 college undergraduates, not even close to a representative sample, no kidding, and determined 7% of decisions were based on the verbal message, 38 from tone of voice, and 55 from non-verbal body language. Mehrabian, our psychologist in question, later distanced himself from his own claim, stating he never meant his finding to apply to all communication. So, I don't... So... So this is literally just something the guy kinda made up. Then it kinda became the thing that people know. And now this is something you can hear in school, for example, actually being taught to you. That's really funny. So, 90% of communication being non-verbal is just... it doesn't really come from anywhere aside from like 150 undergraduate students. That's great. Can I help you? What do you mean by that? Explain yourself. State your case. You need help with your homework or something? What is that? Okay. You see, I should be thinking about things like this and just why not have the entire stream be I think about random facts that people believe and I look them up online and then laugh at people for believing in them. Ain't that funny? Ain't that hilarious? Comedic gold even, perhaps. Are we gonna... I think I have a point to assign, right? Yeah, we're gonna get more damage. I've basically, at this point, I've settled on the upgrades I get and kind of what order I get them early game. Whoops. I'm kind of bored. I don't know what I should do. I just finished school. What's, like, what kind of school though? Like high school? The equivalent? I know it's different depending on like school systems. But I suppose I'm just watching YouTube or watching music in your free time. So it's kind of if you've kind of gotten out of school, then the time you find yourself in is you are kind of off the rails in a way. So usually, you know, you get kind of shuffled into the school system, and in that way, your life is somewhat... The shape your life has is decided by the institution you are in, more or less, and then any additional things you do. So when you do finish school, when you get out, you kind of switch modes. I'm 17, finished high school, so about to go to like uni or not. I guess I'm not suggesting that like out of hand. It's not an easy switch to make, because you've got you've got kind of a lot on your plate to decide, especially if you've never thought about it before. But this is kind of the time where you want to think about. It's like, okay, what am I gonna be doing in life? And not just in the sense of like what job do I want to be doing, but maybe higher goals. Effectively, like what do I want to do in life in general? And for me, and I can of course speak for myself, this is effectively boils down to a question of faith, however you understand it. So it's why faith? It's because it's a question about where your values come from and also what the ultimate goal kind of in life is. You know, it's a lot to think about all at once, so I'm not saying, like, literally figure out your entire life right this moment. That's not what I'm trying to say, but if you kind of feel like there's no direction, it's because there isn't. It's, and the direction, if you want it to be, you could go to some kind of institution, you could like pick up work, you could go to uni, you could do whatever to get this direction kind of from outside yourself. You could basically choose something that, you know, gives you, for example, uni. You could go to uni and kind of postpone having to decide. Because then, you know, it's a program, you go through it, you kind of don't have to worry about other things, you just have tasks to do, you have deadlines to hit, you work on those, and until you get your degree, I guess. But then, at some point, there's going to be... Wait, I totally forgot about a thing. There's going to be a question about... It's like, okay... You know, but what do I actually do with my life? And that is a question that I don't think... Like, I'm most definitely not qualified to answer for you, but nobody really is. That is something you kind of have to figure out for yourself. And I realize that's advice that you often get from people, and it's not very helpful. Because when you hear people say, oh, that's just something you have to figure out, that's basically anything in life at any time. So that kind of advice, not very helpful. You just get, you know, oh, you should figure it out. It's like, I know. That's what I always have to do with everything. So, like, practical advice on how to figure it out, kind of what you want to do. So, first step, like, an important thing to think about with regards to this is don't try and, don't try and do everything all at once. So don't expect to suddenly have everything figured out. Allow yourself the time to kind of be lost in it. So much to think. Indeed, I'm not saying I've literally figured life out, because it's a bit too complicated to actually do that with. But, you know, I think the biggest thing I can recommend is be careful about how you approach things so that you don't panic. Because if you panic, you instantly make worse decisions, like basically regardless of what you do and what you think about. If you are trying to think about things and you feel yourself panicking, as in, you know, you're having trouble forming thoughts because you feel about something so strongly, or maybe are scared of something, then, you know, take it slow. Don't force it too hard, but then also don't use it as an excuse to completely stay away from the topic. So, okay, a technique I very much recommend in terms of managing this thinking is take a piece of paper, preferably a piece of paper, but it could also be just a notepad window. You know, you could open a notepad window in Windows or on your phone, and sit down. You know, don't listen too much. Don't listen to somebody talking. Don't listen to music. And just note down what you are thinking about. Like, everything that comes to mind, put it down on paper. And the purpose behind putting it on paper, is so that you can take the second step. The second step, so you have stuff on paper, you've got a bunch of things, and now in the second step, you take what you've written down and you categorize it. So you start, and some simple categories for that would be, oh, this is just a distraction, like this is a thought that's not on any topic, like that's, I don't know, made me think of a funny video I watched at some point, I got reminded. something like that. You know, that's one category. That would be distractions. But then you also note down valuable thoughts. You know, note down things you kind of have a feeling about but don't quite understand. You know, stuff like that is pretty good for if you want to actually figure out what you think and what you know, what is important to you. That's something to do and get used to, because that allows you. That is like step one in terms of these questions. Gooding Hunter, hello. We are currently doing, I guess, life advice for people fresh out of high school. So if you have something, you know, I don't know. Find a wife immediately. You need woman. Men, you need woman. Immediately woman. Which, that is a funny joke, but I would actually recommend otherwise. I'd recommend to maybe, especially if you are prone to getting emotionally invested, I'd say call it off with the woman. Because these kinds of relationships, in terms of these kinds of relationships with women, and especially if there's like a, you know, it's like physical attraction and whatnot, have a component of, they can make you lose your mind in a way. And by lose your mind, I mean mostly they can make you very emotional. I'm kind of introverted and I don't really know how to talk well. Good thing is, that is something you can learn. That is something you can learn. It's not easy at first, maybe, but it is fortunately something. It is literally fake it till you make it. I don't know if you've ever heard the. Don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, but fake it till you make it is. You basically imagine what somebody who doesn't have your problems would do, and do that. And then it takes a certain amount of control over yourself and a certain amount of practice. You won't get it right the first time, but the basic process is you try that and then you reflect back on it, but not in a way that you might do usually, where, oh, it's like, I'm so bad at this, it's like, it doesn't work, that was so cringe, I posted cringe, oh no. The way I kind of work with that is you take what you've done and you try and you basically do constructive criticism to yourself. So you take what you've done and you think, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done this better, I could have improved this. Or maybe this was outside of my control, so I couldn't have really improved on it. Right? And when you categorize things like that, it takes the panic and takes the emotional weight off of it. Because you kind of disassemble it. It stops being so personal, because you can kind of detach what you are, like what your character, your kind of what you did, and you kind of start working with yourself, kind of like you would work with some other person. You may think of it like that. It's like, oh, you know, I can take this and I can improve on it. You know, I'm gonna figure it out, and if I make a mistake, well, that's too bad. That's a part of figuring it out. You know, say sorry to whoever got hit with the consequences, make up for it, and then soldier on. Because in the grand scheme of things, actually, it doesn't matter that much. You know, maybe if you, I don't know, maybe if you go out of your way to like slap your mother or something, that's probably gonna have long-term consequences. But then if you committed a little bit of crunch in a conversation with someone, it, like, worst case scenario, somebody's gonna make jokes about it, but it doesn't really matter. It's like, you can make jokes about it, it helps as well, as long as the joke is actually, you know, a joke about it, and it's not self-deprecation. That's something you wanna absolutely cut out of your life immediately. Self-deprecation, get that stuff out of there and never return. Because what you actually think and say about yourself in your own mind or out loud is how you actually treat yourself. It translates one to one, and it's a very simple thing. Well, simple. It's a thing that doesn't require too much to actually change. Is to stop self-deprecation and realize that, you know, maybe I am in a place, maybe I'm not very good at certain things, maybe I have problems. Okay, yeah, that's true. That doesn't make me awful, that doesn't make me bad, and that doesn't mean I can't improve. And you want to focus on improving and not on, you know, and not focus on whatever the deprecating thing is. From Hunter, there you go, some more advice. Prepare to be uncomfortable, then do things that make you uncomfortable for the sake of learning. That's kind of it. Although, you don't want to, yeah, for the sake of learning is an important component of that. Because you don't want to do things that are uncomfortable for the purpose of doing things that are uncomfortable. The goal is not to be uncomfortable. That's not the idea. Because that's something that's easy to get at when you've got various little pieces of advice. It's like the goal isn't to, like, life has enough pain as it is. You are gonna get hit with it one way or another at some points. You are just going to be, you are just going to have that. It's going to happen. You're gonna be uncomfortable. You're gonna be, you know, experiencing painful things. That's just life. That's what happens in life. So you really don't have to go out of your way to make life more painful for yourself. But that is very different from the pursuit of pure pleasure. That's a different suggestion or different kind of issue. You want to make the most, effectively, you want to make the most out of every experience you can. So, like, and this might be a controversial opinion of mine, but I think in a lot of way, when people mention they don't want to overthink things, I believe most of the time when they are saying that, they are not actually thinking enough. There's something. Oh, I should have checked the power level. And it's not that. And where overthinking is an applicable label, and you should stop it, is when you are constantly beating yourself over the head with things you've already thought through and you know, and came to a conclusion on. Then you want to not overthink, as in you don't want to, when you've made observations, you've formulated a plan, and now it's time to execute. That's when you shouldn't overthink, where you shouldn't like double guess forever, etc., etc. However, in terms of a lot of things that, you know, in life that you would think about, the feeling you get that people often call overthinking is a feeling I describe as, did I go up there? I flipped that switch, right? I think. The feeling you get when some people call that feeling overthinking, but a lot of the time it is the feeling you get when you are kind of at the peak of thinking, in a way. And I don't mean the peak as in you literally have thought the best ever and nobody can ever think better than you just did. It's when you think about complex things, and when you figure things out, and when you lay them out and you analyze them and then synthesize them back together into workable solutions. There's a lot of it's a difficult process. Basically no matter what you do, it's a difficult process. And so there's this temptation that you get while you are thinking, and while you are thinking about particularly complex things that you don't actually, you know, that are not obvious. There's a temptation to just stop before it's done, in a way. And And that's the feeling you get. And the feeling you get is like, this is hard to do. You are pushing against yourself, kind of, in a way, to push through this block, because beyond it is an actual understanding of the subject matter, which is something that is very valuable because it informs how you act, and it lets you act with confidence as opposed to kind of stumbling your way through things. It's a very important thing to be able to achieve, and you kind of have to push past the feeling of discomfort that you get from having a lot of different things on your plate, in a way, and spinning all of those. From Hunter, another thing: surround yourself with people who want the best for you but are unwilling to let you stagnate, then ask them for feedback. Yeah, that's actually another thing that gets often gets thrown around, but people don't really. So a lot of the time you get people who kind of stay away from criticism. So like, oh, please don't judge me, is what is effectively the phrasing of this. It's not like I cannot talk, just cannot keep talk going, and I don't know how I should start now. For keeping conversations going, what usually, like this attitude I was talking about with regards to how you can make the most out of everything you do and everything you experience, and you know, kind of pull experience out of these things. That also applies to keeping conversations going, I found. That's kind of how I do it. I usually go about it. Is you can. This is something you also can practice, but you can basically keep the conversation going on almost any topic. And it's a matter of how much you can actually think about it and pull something interesting out of it. It could be, you know, it could be on the meta level. So you could talk about talking if there's nothing else. But you can pick up, you know, you can ask people questions. Usually about something that genuinely interests you. You can ask about, you know, you can spin off. It's hard to give like an exact science of it, how you should do it, because this is something that it's not. I don't really have good advice for how exactly to execute it in particular, because a lot of it depends on the situation you find yourself in. But the general gist of it is you wanna actively and consciously look for things to say, to maybe do, to mention, to ask. You wanna be. It's a process that starts by you consciously thinking about it and executing certain things and testing them out, and then over time, after you kind of figure, you know, you start noticing patterns, and you start noticing, oh, this works when I do this, right? These kinds of jokes consistently get people maybe laughing, or like if I ask the question in this way, this is what gets people to open up and kind of talk. And then with some people, and with some people, you absolutely just can't do that. Like, it's also another thing to understand. Some people are just absolute vacuums in terms of conversation. Sometimes you just can't really get them to any like cool and fun level of conversation, because they just don't want to do it for one reason or another. You will just get. They'll just respond with like 2 words for everything, and you will not get any productive conversation or like fun conversation out of it. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Some people just are like that. Not everybody is going through this process of actually figuring things out and trying their best to. because it's a team effort in a way. You can do a lot from your end, but at the end of the day, you require, you know, it takes two to tango. It takes two people to engage in conversation. And if the other side is just not willing to engage at all, then maybe it's better to, you know, say it's like, okay, cool, bye-bye, and then move on. Hello. Hello. Welcome to the chat in which we talk about life. It's pretty fun. I started talking about something and I interrupted myself to read a chat message, and now it is out of my mind completely. So if you remember that, do let me know, because I don't. It's probably very profound and important, because I am the greatest philosopher in our times. I am also a king of humbleness, as you can clearly notice. I'm also great at video games. Basically, like any positive adjective you can think of. That's probably not the correct like piece of language that I'm mentioning. Don't worry, I know what I'm talking about. Absolutely. Ask people about themselves. People love talking about themselves from Hunter. That's very good. Yep. You can absolutely, you can ask people about what they do, and they'll most likely have something to tell you about it. Some people do get embarrassed about that. I've experienced that when I kind of ask people about their job, and then I kind of dig deeper. I start asking more specific questions, like how does this work? What do you think of it? Like what mechanics operate in this field? What I found is that some people get kind of defensive about it in a way. It's like, but I probably shouldn't talk about it because, like, who cares? It's like, no, bro. If I didn't care, I wouldn't have asked. So go ahead. I want to know. No, that is something that people don't usually do and are not used to. So you might get, you might surprise people with that one. I think. Look, I'm doing backflips. Oh, I was talking about feedback. That's very possible. Because in a world where, yeah, I was talking about don't judge, which is probably one of my all-time least favorite things to say to people. Don't judge with this framework where you actually want to improve yourself and you want to figure things out. You wanna take control of your life and you wanna do good things within it. The don't judge approach is horrible. It gets in your way in a way that like few other things do. Because if you want to improve, you need feedback. You need not only, you know, you can do a lot on your own. You can figure things out. You can, you know, you can form questions. You can investigate. You can think. But feedback from others, how they see it, how they look at it, what they like, what they don't like, what they think, how they think, what they pay attention to. All of those things are very, very useful. And then when you go with the don't judge attitude, you basically, you strip that away from people. You don't give them the tools that are very, very important if you want to figure things out and you want to go, like, be better in life. So that is not to say be an asshole. That's not a dichotomy. It's not to say be an asshole. That is to say, make sure the judgment you are providing to others is accurate to reality and conveyed in a way they can understand. So don't go out of your way to call people dickheads when they've messed something up. You know, don't be, you know, don't like dwell on things once they've been understood. Stuff like that. Don't do that, right? But be sure to deliver what you think, and if you think something is wrong, do say it. I do point it out. That's general advice. It's not going to be applicable for literally every scenario at any time. but you wanna get comfortable with giving and receiving feedback, because that helps people be with you tremendously. When you are open to actually talking about things, it's a lot easier to communicate, and you know, if so, like, be open with people to the point where you're comfortable saying, it's like, okay, please, if you have a problem with me, if something bothers you about how I act, what I do, how I speak, please just bring it up to me, because I'm down, as long as it's not like excessive, I'm down to help, I'm down to change that if it bothers you, if it's a problem, and if it's not too hard. Because then we both win, right? I do something for you, that's nice, and then we both, our relationship is better. We get to communicate better. We don't annoy each other. We can spend time with each other without, you know, without massive trouble that comes from trying to figure out, kind of in the dark, what the other person wants. Because you can't get into somebody else's head, and nobody else can get in your head. So it's important for you to, you know, make what's in your head known outside, so that people can, you know, can adjust to it and can work with it. Whoops, almost died. Yeah, it's and this kind of orbits, all of this kind of orbits around a very important idea, which is that you should be in control of your emotions, which is usually just a shorthand for you should be in control of your reactions to your emotions. Because you will feel in certain ways. You have a certain amount of control over how you feel certain things, because you can choose what situations to put yourself in, and you can choose your attitude in response to those things. However, you know, you can always control. Well, sometimes you can't if it's too strong for you, but generally you should control the emotions you experience and how you react to them. Not the emotions you experience, how you react to the emotions. So if something is annoying you, you want to make sure to notice that consciously, name it. It's like, okay, I am being annoyed at this thing, and then make sure that when you act, maybe take a break, cool off, you know, whatever you need to do, but make sure you are not acting directly from the emotion. Insert that layer of like insulation between what you immediately feel and what that pushes you to do, and what you actually, you know, what you actually enact in life. And then review past decisions you've made, etc., to also notice patterns. So, for example, like when I feel bad, I tend to, I don't know, I tend to drown myself in YouTube videos. I watch a lot of those. I'd notice those patterns and think, it's like, okay, do I want to do that? Do I not want to do that? How do I realistically, what actions do I take to change them? Okay, more from Hunter, there you go. Be teachable. If someone does bring feedback to you, seriously consider it, and even if you disagree with it, take away from it what you can, then say thank you. It'll help people feel comfortable bringing feedback to you in the future, absolutely. Yeah, give feedback to people giving you feedback, in a way. So like, make sure you take it seriously, you don't laugh it off, you don't... You want to make sure that the message you are conveying with your behavior is, I want your feedback, and I find it valuable. So, if you disagree with it, you should voice to the person that you are talking with, you should voice that concern. It's like, oh, I don't think this is correct, because reason A, B, and C. So like, and probably you can even point out, this is good. Like this is a good bit of information that helps me. That's good feedback, but I don't quite get this. Right, and then what that allows you to do is it gives them it shows them very clearly that you've not just, you know, you are not just pretending to ask for feedback, you actually want it, because you've taken what's been said and you've consciously processed it and then said something that, you know, incorporates what they've said. And I know this is an extremely autistic way to talk about all of this, but I think it helps to verbalize this and understand these kind of processes. think it's it's good to have this understanding, because ultimately, you know, you the entire person, you have a bunch of different components inside of yourself in a way. Like, they are of course interconnected and influence one another, but the most important, it's I don't really like saying most important, but the decision-making component of you is your mind. I don't actually know, because this is getting into things that I've only studied in my native language, which is not English, and so I don't really have the proper terms. But you have your rational mind, which is responsible for observing and judging things. So you wanna basically in the job of the rational mind is to differentiate between good and evil. And then you have free will, which lets you take what the mind has figured out is good and enact it. And then you have your body, you have your emotions, and you have a lot of different and there's a whole like practical side to these things, where you want to make sure it is not just do not just understand, but you can also enact that in reality. You don't make some pipe dream plan that cannot work, and then you try to make utopia, which will never happen. But rather you make small steps towards. You make small steps towards being better and better over time, because there's not really any other way to do it. You have to go small steps, because you have a certain amount of energy. Okay, not energy, but you have a certain amount of willpower, and it is a real resource you want to be. It's a resource you want to manage. It's not something that is infinite, and you don't get more of it by, I don't know, like doing like clenching your muscles really, really hard. You don't suddenly obtain more willpower like that. So you want to treat it as something that's, limited. You want to treat it as something that's limited, and you want to manage it wisely. You want to make changes in a way that doesn't exhaust you permanently. So if you don't want to throw too much. This is why people say, like, start with, I don't know, 1 push-up a day if you're having a hard time. Don't try and start with 50. Start with 1. Because that's going to be manageable, and it's going to establish a habit. And then when the habit is there, it's easier to expand it. It doesn't take as much willpower to do that. So that is a kind of approach to how to do things even if they are hard, in a way. Or how to change things that you maybe don't. There's a lot more to all of this. I'm most definitely not conveying all there is to kind of, because this is the broad kind of umbrella under which this all kind of resides, is personal responsibility, which effectively boils down to the idea that your life is your life, and so you should do things to make that life of yours better, and and it's your job to do it, and not whatever other person you can think of that should do it for you. It's the kind of basis for what I'm talking about here. Hold on. Oops. Right, we're still good. Okay, so another topic I kinda related, which I've already touched on a bit, that I kinda wanna rant about, is that I think that a lot of the time the advice you get from people is really bad. Now, what do I mean by that? I've kind of touched on this already, but it's kind of like when you get an advice that you should just figure it out, or you know, it's like advice is. It's like if you take personal responsibility, if you take personal responsibility as advice, it's like you should engage in personal responsibility. That's, I mean, that's sure, that's okay. That's like, yeah, that's a good thing. That's something you should do. However, however, that's not very useful on its face. To go, but it helps. Cheers. I hope it does. It's a good set of it's a good set of things that I wish more people were taught, especially in their families, but like in schools and whatnot. I don't know if it's possible to get something like this into a school, but you know, these are things I really wish were talked about more. I feel like they've been kind of abandoned. Yeah, good luck. Alright, so yeah, just saying you should be responsible for your life is not very useful. And the basic idea is fairly useful. Because it just is. That's not a good argument, but ow, that rolled very fast. Oh, I should stop taking damage actually. Okay, advice not being very good when it's just telling you that you should do something is because that's change your goals is one thing and is important to change your goals, but then in terms of actual techniques for figuring out what your goals are, what you want them to be, how to change them, etc., there's a whole wealth of knowledge that is usually left up to the person listening to the advice, which I think is usually a mistake on the part of the person that is bestowing the advice. I don't know if that's the correct word to use, but it sounds fancy, so I'm going to do it. Let's get these two. So, we're not going there because there's water down there and it's toxic still. Yeah, that's been very frustrating because that's also a lot of advice you get, and this is especially annoying. And this is the most like frequent critique of boomer advice that people like that bothers people a lot, young people. Which I think is perfectly sensible, is that it's like, okay, buddy, pull yourself up by your bootstraps is all fine and dandy, but there's so much between, you know, between 0 and that I have to do personally, and the context has changed so much that this advice is no longer directly applicable, and now in fact requires a plethora of it requires basically, it's a conundrum I've run into at uni. It's something I'd get told when being at uni would be that, oh, you go to uni to, you know, this isn't just like school anymore. This is in uni you are expected to learn on your own. It's like, okay, granted, you know, sure, as in, yeah, it's my responsibility to learn, indeed, and I execute it, I do it, I put in my own effort in order to learn things that I'm not being taught properly, but then it very quickly turns into a question of, okay, why is that institution there then? It's like, why does uni even exist at all if this is the case? If I'm supposed to learn on my own, if I'm supposed to figure it out, if I'm supposed to put in the time and effort to learn it, why are you, Mr. Teacher? Why are you there? What's your purpose? What's the point of you existing over there? And I think the unfortunate answer to that question is, well, there's not much of a purpose if that is your approach. Because that's not the correct approach. Because the correct approach is, yes, I am responsible for this, and because I am responsible for learning, I have come to an institution that is explicitly set up with the purpose of helping me reach that goal of understanding of education. And education not in the sense of obtaining some credential, but education in the sense of actually understanding the world better. So it's my responsibility to learn, but it's your responsibility to teach me. And while I am executing my responsibility, I am participating in it by coming here and engaging in good faith with what I'm being taught. It is your responsibility to teach me, and you are not engaging with that responsibility whatsoever by being a lazy cunt who doesn't even show up to time, like on time to lectures. I'm sorry, but please point me to where the lie in that reasoning is. Because I don't believe I don't believe there's a lie to it. I believe that there's an excuse that is used to justify doing nothing by that teacher. Basically. And this is not just, of course, not just applicable to uni. There's a lot of different walks of life where you should get friends. You should just get more friends. Sure. I mean, I agree with the idea. It's good to have friends. Sure. It's like you. That's not exactly useful right out of the bat in a kind of when you're dealing with a world that has lost a lot of things that have been obvious previously. It's no longer quite. It's because there's when giving advice like that, there are a bunch of assumptions underneath it. And these assumptions are the reason why other people kind of maybe your age or like of similar persuasions that you talk about this with are convinced and think that's good advice is because when you hear the words just make more friends, you automatically fill in the blanks of how to do it and how to approach it and why you should do it also and what is good about it. And when giving advice to people who are not you, it is paramount to not take what you actually know and think is right for granted. Because when you are convincing someone else, you don't have the benefit of that someone else, you know, already agreeing with you. And I know this sounds condescending, it might sound condescending and very obvious, but I think a lot of people would really benefit from applying this when giving advice to people. Make sure to... But it's something that applies, I think, basically anytime you feel compelled to say, just do X. I think is probably a time where you should question this, as in you should maybe investigate if what you are about to say, you know, is good advice, or if it's something that you say to feel good about having given advice. Because it's very easy to tell someone to just do something, because it satisfies your kind of need to, oh, I should probably help this guy. And then, but it also doesn't actually require you to do any wrestling with the situation that guy is in. And that is something, another thing is, I understand that having a victim mentality is bad, and yes, it is bad. However, that is not the same thing as being aware of the things you have, for example, not been taught, and the things that somebody has neglected. And then now, when you are picking up some of that slack, you have to be aware that I am picking up slack, like explicitly be aware of, I am picking up slack for an institution or for a person that doesn't do what they are supposed to do. And this is not, because this positions you properly in relation to that. It removes, for example, guilt for not doing enough for things you shouldn't be doing in the first place, and you're doing as a lesser evil in a way. This is... yeah, it bothers me because I go from time to time onto when I peruse YouTube. I think that's a word I can use, right? When I peruse YouTube, I sometimes click on various little videos by people of like, oh, the problem with whatever, or how to do something, or like, well, usually it is some variety of stating the problem in better or like in more or less accurate terms. And then usually the most it gets in terms of advice is, yeah, we should really do something about that. It's like, yeah, that's really, and that's why you should do something. And then this is basically like the 3 dots, or like some advice like go to the gym. It's like, and I'm not saying don't go to the gym. I'm saying maybe maybe the problems you have in life, and maybe the things you are noticing about society at large and how people interact with each other, maybe, just maybe, that isn't maybe that isn't just a matter of you. Maybe the problem isn't just with you. And I particularly dislike people who have taken that as an excuse to do whatever the hell they want and blame it on somebody else. Whoa, stop abducting me. Because they've removed something that is... oops. They've taken something that is important to understand about reality, and something that is important to talk about, because you don't want to blame yourself for things that you have no fault in. They've taken that and they've turned it into and they've turned it into something that you want to tune out by default, because it's been completely overused by people who, you know, have no interest in character development and no interest in much at all, actually. You just want a get out of jail free card for why they have to do nothing. It's like, oh, it's everybody else's fault, and that's why I should do nothing. While the kind of proper attitude to this is, okay, there are things that are other people's fault, they are not my fault, but I still, in a way, like, this is what I should do about it. This is what I should do about it for myself. This is what I should do about it for others. Because the problem is real, and the problem hasn't been caused by me. And it's like, and it's especially important to me in terms of it's... I lost my train of thought because I read chat, damn it. The idea of get more friends assumes equality between people. Get better friends, indeed. It's like, if you know, if you have quote-unquote friends and then you don't actually feel compelled to spend time with them, and you get annoyed and it feels like a chore, then perhaps it is something, you know, one of your little components inside yourself telling you that you've surrounded yourself with people who you probably shouldn't have surrounded yourself with. It's like, why does, you know, why does hanging around with this person that is supposedly my friend make me feel miserable? It's like, well, maybe, just maybe, you should select different friends, indeed. And it's again, a lot of people take that as something that it's like, oh, you know, if everyone around you, you know, if everyone around you is a problem, and you know, and it's constantly their problem, and etc., then, you know, maybe the problem is actually with you. But another way to look at it is maybe you are in California and everybody around you is actually horrible. That is also something, it's a good rule of thumb to not, you know, go around getting mad at people for things that like are not their faults, and make sure to examine your own character very, you know, very thoroughly. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but make sure to go in deep and make sure your motivations and the way you think and what you do is good. However, do not discount the idea that you might just be in a horrible environment, because that is entirely within the realm of possibility. It's like basically any advice and any rules you I am reminded of that quote, only a Sith deals in absolutes. which I don't want to take to say that I believe in moral relativism. That's oddly hard to pronounce. I don't want to take the moral relativist position. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that advice and actions to take and solutions to implement, that is relative. Because the solution is always in service of a goal. You want to make sure that the solution you are employing leads you to the goal, and so then it's very hard to come up with universal solutions to all problems, because you know because the solution is to a particular problem. And then you can very easily imagine another problem that would have a solution that is the opposite of what you've just done to solve the problem you've just solved. So in terms of advice, there's things like, it's not magic, or it's not some kind of it's very much in the nature of communication and how we actually process and store information in our minds. So it's like I have a certain idea in my mind, and that idea is not entirely fully conscious and expressed in words. A lot of that idea is subconscious. A lot of it is some things I've learned through experience and I don't necessarily cannot convey in words, and it's more sophisticated than I can explain in a given amount of time. So therefore, when I give advice or where I say something, I can only convey so much nuance, so much depth, and so much, and it's only going to be so useful. So then, you know, you could take anything that is said at face value, apply it directly, and get mad that maybe it didn't work in the circumstance you've applied it in. But a whole other... the actual way, I think, to process advice would be to take the words, try and get at the spirit, you know, of the letter, the spirit behind the letter, and then try and integrate that, and then never let anyone's advice replace your own conscious thinking, examination of what is good versus what is bad, your own conscience. You know, never let these things override. Never let these things be overridden, only let them be maybe informed if something is reasonable. Yeah, let's do this sequence. My favorite sequence in the entire game, by the way. Because it features my favorite mechanic in the entire game. Whoops. Oh, get out, get out. I don't know, this is I think called Bash. I'm a fake Bash fan because I clearly do not know the... No. Please, jump on the jump pad, thank you. Oh, he didn't jump on the jump pad, guys, it's over. Maybe not. I need to stop screwing up. No, screw it. We are abandoning that. I don't wanna... I don't even remember that I died there last time. Relativism. Really, I was having a harder time pronouncing moral. These kinds of like L's in English are giving me a hard time for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah. I guess so far I've had a good session of young man yells at what? I would say at Cloud. Oh, you know what? We could be clever about it. It's gonna be young man yells on the cloud because I'm on the cloud. Get it? It's on the internet, the cloud, the internet. The cloud, like the internet. I'll stop. Although there is something to the theory that you can make jokes funny by driving them into the ground and then below the ground like 20 feet deep. However, I'm not going to do that. I'm above that. That's not true. My I have a certain amount of trolling in my sense of humor, I've noticed, but very light-hearted in a way. It's like I find it very very fun to stack a bunch of nonsense on top of one another and see how long it takes for people to figure it out that I'm actually not serious about any of it. And it's funny, I've mentioned earlier in the stream, I've talked about like the verbal non-verbal communication, and that like 90% of communication is non-verbal, which turns out to be absolute nonsense that the guy that came up with it completely went back on later. However, I find it funny because what I'm effectively doing with these kinds of jokes is I am keeping the portion of it that is non-verbal completely straight. So like I say it just how I would say anything else, how I would say anything serious, but then the content, the actual words are just utter nonsense. And then it brings me immense joy when people first get confused, then they try to argue with it, and then they realize I'm just completely not serious about it. And then some people like it, and some people get absolutely annoyed by it. And the worst part is that people being annoyed by it is also funny. Which is why I bring up the whole, like, troll part of it. But it's like, it's not, you know, it's trolling in that sense. I don't really like trolling for the sake of like, oh, I'm being very mean and rude to this guy and he gets mad. It's like, I feel like that's low quality trolling, you know? You gotta put in more effort in that. We're gonna be extra careful. I remember dying on one of these spikes before. So we're gonna take it slow. I might go there and then go fast. There you go. Boop. I don't know, man. It's fun. Well, it's fun for me. I don't know how fun it is for other people to witness my shenanigans. Which I, of course, mean in jest. Ooh, this one's... I like this. This feels like something I should get. So we're gonna be working towards that. There you go. That's very clean in terms of line. I'm gonna go get some air. There's an upgrade later down the line that allows you to breathe underwater. But that's cheating, right? Surely. Okay, don't squish me. Don't squish me. Okay. I think it's been a pretty good stream. I wanted to rant, and I have ranted. Oh boy, have I ranted. There's been ranting done. There's been yelling at Cloud executed. Pretty happy with it because I've been kicking these ideas kind of around in my mind, and I wanted to get them out. It's kind of cool that somebody showed up in chat and requested advice on, you know, on topics that basically like fit with the things I wanted to talk about anyway. I have a feeling that, you know, if I may suggest that, then maybe there was a little bit of divine shenanigans behind that, which would of course be crazy entirely to suggest. Or would it? Oh. Yeah, I'm gonna be finishing the stream soon. Just wanna chill for a little bit after that intense autism session. No, screw you. Do I not have that? Please, don't. Dude, do I not have the maps though? I wanted to chill. I messed it all up. It's all over. It's more Jova than previously imagined. Alright. I guess at the very end of the stream we are right back where we started, which is a very poetic metaphor for life itself, I believe. Alright, I'm gonna get off here. I've said my piece. I'm getting a little tired. Very happy for this to have gone through as it has. One of the better ones, I think, in terms of content. Alright. Thank you very much for watching, for chatting, etc, etc. See ya again on the next installment of beating the one segment of the game over and over again. While talking about subjects that probably have no proper place on a gaming stream. However, I like talking, so this is going to keep happening. The talking will continue until morale improves. Alright, once again, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, evening, night, whatever. Bye-bye. Good one.